Welcome to this week's Mad Plantman show, and today we are talking again about hostas and some excellent varieties, which include Humpback Whale, this little cracker, Voices in the Wind, and Hope Springs Eternal. Never a truer word spoken. Granfer will be diving into a bit of old school garden lore, no waste in the garden and gardening by the moon. And for today's practical garden tip, we're looking properly at a bit of air layering, how to do it successfully with plants like rhododendrons, fatsias and the wisteria. Anyway, stay tuned and we'll be discussing more. And if you want to start off with hostas, I think we'll be talking about this one, which is Humpback Whale. It is just a belter. Look at those leaves. And this is only a small babby plant. They grow huge, really corrugated, the leaf, and it just offers this spectacular presence on the garden border. It holds down a bit of space. It's perfect for shade. Bit of dappled light's not a problem. And it gives this wonderful structure. Flowers alone won't cut it, but this one does. It is beautiful, but look at it. This, see all the roots all growing? It's had a bit of a nibble from a slug. Not a slug. I shall sort you out later on. But it is just a cracking hosta. Put it in a pot. Try to protect it from slugs. Oh, I don't know. Put gravel down underneath it. Do your best. I have to come out and do a little bit of slug hunt, but they will not stop me owning a hosta. And this one is one of the best. Next one we're going to be talking about will be, of course, its Voices in the Wind. Look at this one. Totally different from Humpback Whale. It's elegant, it's softer, it's more flowing, as you can see from the leaves, which we'll look at a bit closely in a minute. It's got long leaves, they've got a lighter feel to them, and there's a real sense of movement when this one grows. Here's a patch of them, and you can see what I mean. As they say, Voices in the Wind. It is a really apt title for this one. Works beautifully when it's woven through with other shady plants. It's just great. Let's look at one a little bit more in detail. Look at that. Couldn't want much more from a hosta than that, could you? Look at the leaves on it. They are just like one of those old saily things, flapping in the wind. Just great. But these obviously will grow a lot bigger. And as they do, they'll fill their space. And they're just incredibly elegant. Strangely enough, whilst, as you saw, Humpback Whale had a little nibbloo poos, I've got a whole batch here, which is right next to them, and hasn't been hit by any slugs. I'm not saying they aren't a slug favourite, these, but it is quite surprising. So, don't know, might be a little bit more slug resilient than the rest, but even so, doesn't make any difference. I would still have it quite happily in my garden, as I do. What a belter. There you go. That is Voices in the Wind. On to the next one. I haven't got very big ones of these, unfortunately. This is Hope Springs Eternal. But as you can see, even though they're very small, these are going to grow into your lovely traditional hosta. It's reliable, attractive, and just one of those plants just turning up year after year, no fuss, great colour contrast, great growth, and a great choice if you want something really lovely in your border. Will grow to the normal sort of hostery size. It's not an absolute thumper like Humpback Whale, which is a properly big hosta. You know, this is just your normal size hosta. Sluggies do like this one, I know, even though these couple of plants haven't been hit by any slugs at all. They do find a way, those little swines. I tend to, at the very least, put fresh bark down underneath all the hostas. That tends to do the trick, but it's got to be fresh every year, because the bark breaks down as the year goes on, and by the coming of spring next year, it would have broken down to actually form a nice home for said slugs. So if you cover it with fresh bark every year, you'll be fine over the top. That's all right. Other than that, gravel or grit, that can help. Or if you really want to, give them a drink of beer. I find that really, really good. And I've got it in the polytunnel here. I got a lot of drunk slugs that I just chuck out. The ducks eat the slugs, and then the drunks get dug. I've probably had some of that beer myself, and the ducks get drunk as well. Anyway, there you go. Hope springs eternal. Another wonderful hosta. Right, that's the lovely hostas over and done with, and now over to Granfer. Right then, everybody. Back in my day, there's no such thing as garden waste. If it come out the soil, went back in the soil. Leaves, peelings, old stems, a few branches even. It all fed summit sooner or later as it broke down. Give the earth a bit of a feel to it. Now folk, they're quick enough to chuck things away, but the garden remembers. Give it back what it's given you, and it'll stay kind. Then there's the moon, of course. Didn't call it science, but it knew when to plant. Growing crops when the moon's pulling up. Roots, it's pulling down. You'd sow it by it, cut by it, and sometimes just sit and watch it. And the garden always seems to know. Gardening's not just about what you do, it's about when you do it. Anyway, that's enough learning for one day. See you directly. Granfer out. On to a bit of air layering after those wonderful words from Granfer. Air layering is a brilliant, brilliant way to replicate plants that may be a little challenging. I've got a camellia in my hand just to show you a little bit closer what I mean by air layering. And then we'll go on to a couple of the plants that we have air layered and see what you can do in your garden if you want to do it. It's a great, great thing to do. What you need to do is always work on the assumption that a plant is going to help you to grow more plants if it is still in the ground. If in air layering, what you do is, this obviously is a branch, and this is the air. That's why it's called air layering. You do not remove this from the mother plant, but you wound it. And by wounding it, I mean you take a penknife and either at a join or down past a join, you cut a slit. If I do this, what I mean is this. Oh, ugh. So, yes, I know, I'm cutting a knife towards me. I'm a grown boy, I'll be all right. You cut a slit. Now you can put, I've taken a twig now. Whoops, there we go. Take a twig off. Or just, to be honest, use like a toothpick or something like that. Just keep it up, put that in, then take something like a piece of old compost bag, a strip, which is say 7 or 8 inches wide by, I don't know, 12, 15 inches long. Put compost in that with a bit of perlite or something to hold a bit of moisture in, and make sure the compost is damp. You then wrap that bag around that, so the compost is in connection with this. Now, you won't be able to see because you're wrapping it up whether it is going to be in contact, but if you take it and you rub it in like that and give it a good, then you shouldn't have any problems at all. Tie up both ends and just leave it. Now, it does take a bit of time. It's not going to be even a case, it's not certainly not going to be weeks, probably not going to even be a couple of months. maybe even takes a year. So remember where you're doing it so that it doesn't look untoward, or well, you might not care about whether it looks untoward. But remember what you're doing, and when you've done it, make a little note, something like that. But the important thing is to make a wound like that, or you don't necessarily have to make a wound if for instance the branch is a bit thinner like this. It's going to be very difficult. So I always find just scraping it like that, just as you can see there, to release some of the internal structure from that plant. That will then be the wound that encourages roots through the compost, naturally wants to protect itself. And of course, the benefit is, whilst it is up in the air, all of that plant is getting all the energy and all the growth from the roots underneath. That will help that survive and that create roots. That is the benefit of air layering. I use it on stuff which is difficult to get into the ground through just sort of like ground layering. And I also like to use it for the harder shrubs to propagate, and the ones that I find harder to propagate, some of the trees and bits and pieces like that. And we'll have a quick look at those now. Now a bit of Blue Peter moment. Here's one I've prepared earlier. This is my rhododendron, and just to prove that it's come from a compost sack, there you go. And as you can see, I've got the branch there. I've scored it underneath, as I said. I've wrapped it, and in there is the compost. I'm feeding it in there and tied off either end so it's tight to keep the moisture in. Now, you can use a number of different things for wrapping. I like, obviously, compost because, well, I use compost. But you can use anything you want to. I think a novel way might be doing it is a bit of a smithy, where you wrap it with tin foil. Whether that works or not, I don't know, but yeah, it might be an interesting one. The one thing I would suggest not using is clear plastic. And the main reason being is when clear plastic gets hit by the sun, not that it would be hugely around here with the rhododendrons, but when it does get hit by the sun, it can create green moss mold. So I would avoid using the clear plastic. But if you want to, use it, see what happens. But any bit of plastic's lying around, nice strip, and you'll be fine. Next, we're moving on to the Fatsia, I think. Nothing like the big old Fatsia. And here you have it. And inside again, there you go. I've wrapped him up nicely. I've heard people, they take cuttings and stems. It's the first time I've tried anything with the Fatsia, I have to be honest. And I think it's something you could take cuttings of, or maybe even seeds, but I quite like the idea of air layering on these because there's some nice juicy stems, and I think it will work quite well. So I'll be interested to see how this one happens. And next, obviously, we'll go on to the climbers. Climbers are really good at doing this because you can do ground layering on climbers because obviously of the long stems, but certain ones like the wisteria that we're going to have a look at now do become quite woody. And just let's see what air layering does. And here we have my wisteria. As you can see, it is a fair old chunky monkey. Now, what I've done, I've just taken an absolute pile of stems. Because the stems aren't very big, I've literally just wounded all of them. And done the same, wrapped them all with soil. Feel all the soil in there. So that should be nicely done. And let's see what happens with that one. There you go. Wrapped it up again. Now, with a lot of the plants that I've done, they're all pretty much under shade, and I've just used a mix of compost and perlite to maintain some moisture in the compost. But some people do use sphagnum moss, and they put it in the wound because, of course, sphagnum moss is very good at holding and retaining water. The problem I have with sphagnum moss and using it is I don't like taking what is a product created in nature to use and help me to do this. I don't think, you know, if you haven't got sphagnum moss growing in your garden, and many people don't, they'll go out and, you know, strip it from somewhere else. So I don't overly advocate that. I think it's something to be careful of. So I like to do it compost, perlite, and that should be it. Well, that's it for today. Whether it's a giant hosta, whether it's a bit of old gardening wisdom, or a bit of clever propagating technique and tricks, the garden always rewards patience and observation. That's it for this week. Stay weird, stay wild. Mad Plantman out.